Moshe Vardi. He's one of the most decorated computer scientists alive. Moshe isn't just building the technology, he's pushing us to reckon with its consequences.
Suppose we succeed in automating everything. What's the purpose of humanity?
So you think a lot about resisting humans becoming, soft, kind of like the movie WALL-E, which is like the AIs are going to kill us with kindness. And I still think the AIs are more likely to kill us by melting our cells.
We have to be incredibly idiots to let technology run amok to the point that it will just decide, let's do away with the pesky humans. I can say it cannot happen. Let's put it this way, very unlikely.
How does the entire coalition of humans compete with millions of geniuses in a data center? Who wins that fight? Welcome to Doom Debates. Moshe Vardi is a professor of computer science at Rice University, where he holds the rare distinction of university professor, meaning he's empowered to teach in any department across the university. He's one of the most decorated computer scientists alive, with over 65,000 citations and an H-index above 100. He pioneered the field of automata theoretic verification. He figured out how to use mathematical logic and automata theory to prove that computer systems work correctly. He was also editor-in-chief of the ACM for a decade. He is a fellow at Rice's Baker Institute for Public Policy, Bridging Computer Science and Policy. He has been warning for over a decade that AI could eventually automate most human labor. So in other words, Moshe isn't just building the technology, he's one of the most prominent voices in computing, pushing us to reckon with its consequences. I'm excited to talk with Professor Vardi about the trajectory of AI, what it means for society, and to compare our views on one risk in particular, which is AI extinction. Moshe Vardi, welcome to Doom Debates.
It's good to be here.
All right, so a lot of bullet points here. I think a lot of people would be envious of this resume. Let me just ask you very briefly, what has been the central focus of your whole career of research?
So there are people that have, I've seen people that have like life strategy, one kind of overshadowing goal. I had a colleague, at some point she said she wanted to become university president, and she dedicated the next 20 years to become university president. That's not my strategy. I'm more of an improviser, okay? If there is a strategy, is be open to opportunities. Thing happened, a door opens, and I said, let's see what's on the other side, and I walked there. People ask me now, what are you doing today? I said, well, my left brain is doing research in artificial intelligence, and my right brain is yelling, what are you doing?
So in terms of the research focus, right? I know I mentioned automata verification. Maybe tell us a little bit about that.
So I'll put it a bit higher level, which is that today when people say AI, they kind of typically think of LLMs. That's kind of almost the notion of AI, or maybe even a little more broadly, Gen AI. But for many, many years, when people thought about intelligence and mechanizing intelligence, you said, what is intelligence? Is to think and speak logically. And so reasoning is intelligence. Think about it. Recognizing cats from dogs. Well, any rat can do it, okay? How much intelligence does it take? Today it's called good old-fashioned AI, sometimes derisively, sometimes affectionately, depends on the speaker. But for many, many years, people thought this is automated reasoning is AI, and that has really been the center of my research. I would say all the way from going back to my master's thesis was about automating reasoning. There was a book, I remember when I became a graduate student, there was a big book and the title was, What Can Be Mechanized? And that was really the essence of computer science. What kind of intellectual thing can be mechanized? We're not talking about harvesting wheat here, but mechanizing intellectual things. And so my research for the past almost 50 years is mechanizing reasoning.
So that's your research. And what's your focus these days when it comes to your public policy and public communication?
Again, we talked about taking advantage of opening doors. My kind of public policy career started in the 2000. I was a member of the board of the Computing Research Association. We had a board discussion about what was then known as software offshoring. when the Indian consulting companies suddenly became software giants. And there was a worry that all the software will be written in India. Now we're worrying all the software will be written by AI. But in the early 2000s, the worry was the Indians, they're smart, there are many of them, they'll write all the software in the world. Is there a future for the software industry in the United States? And I said, well, we need first of all to understand the facts. We can't have an opinion and think of policy before there are facts. And no good deed goes unpunished. I was asked to chair a study about software offshoring, and the study ended up saying, not to worry, this is not the end of the software industry in the United States. There's nothing to fear but fear itself. And then ACM asked me, well, based on your experience, would you take as editor-in-chief of communication of the ACM, which is the ACM is the premier society in computing, and the communication of the ACM is the magazine, it's the flagship publication of the society. And I was asked to become editor-in-chief. And I accepted, and then it became clear that I have to write editorials. I started thinking about computing and society, and more that has become kind of one of the main focus of my public writing, looking at technology and looking at societal impact. I would say the bulk of my education career, this was not a topic of conversation. It's not a mainstream topic. Most of the computer scientists are nerds, they're interested in the technology, and that's why they got into the business. That's why I fell in love with programming, so that's how I got into this. But more and more, I'm thinking, wait a minute, are we doing something good for society? You know, people start worrying about automation the new war about automation started in the early 2010s. Then social media came about, people start worrying about social media. Now we're worrying about AI. So I would say for the past 15 years, there are more and more voices with concerns about the societal impact of technology. And that is something that I spend a lot of time thinking about and writing about.
Well, are you ready for me to ask you the number one question that summarizes what I think is most important?
Yes.
P-Doom, P-Doom, what's your P-Doom, what's your P-Doom, what's your P-Doom?
Professor Moshe Vardi, what's your P-Doom?
So P-Doom is not a well-defined concept because doom is not a well-defined concept, okay? There could be many different dooms, the many different scenarios. Here's a way to think about it. Will humanity be here in 1,000 years? That's not a lot to ask for, 1,000 years. And so I've done the following thought experiment. You know, economists like to see, they said for them the ideal economic growth is about 2.1% per year, real economic growth. And that's roughly what we have for the past since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, about 2.1% per year. But suppose we have it for 1,000 years. You can do the calculation. You can do 1.021 to the power of 1,000. You can stick it in your Google search bar and do it. And the answer would be, in 1,000 years, even as, you know, how big can the population on Earth be? Okay, let's suppose we go from about 10 billion now to about 100 billion, which already will be incredibly crowded. The average, what we call GDP, will be in the billions per capita. Everybody will be a billionaire. Now, the thing is, Earth would not be able to sustain 100 billion people spending like billionaires, okay?
Yeah, there's just not enough material good to mine out of the Earth.
It's a finite planet. So what happened? About 3 million years ago, every species in nature is in equilibrium. If it's not in equilibrium, eventually something would happen. Is, you know, too much prey. You know, the predators will go and eat them. Eventually they get into equilibrium. About 3 million years ago, we invented technology. We started chiseling stones about 3 million years ago. And we're not in equilibrium with nature. And for long-term survival, to me, we have to be in equilibrium with nature. We're not. So right now, I feel you're asking, what is the probability of doom? overall, unless we change very, very dramatically how we live on this planet, I think we're doomed. Now, it could very well be, I mean, that's one reason that I think the concept of doom is not well defined. We might get wiser. We might decide, no, we have to change things. We have made change. All kind of things we used to take for granted, we've changed them. Okay, we might learn to live in equilibrium with nature. So in a big way, the reason that doom is not well defined because it assumes some kind of determinism, and we still have agency. We might be able to do something about technology in general. We might be able to learn to live in harmony, in equilibrium with the planet, because we're stuck on this planet. We're not going anywhere else. Not for a very, very long time, if ever.
Okay, yeah, you've made some points that I really agree with. One thing I interpret you to be saying is we're all doomers on a long enough time frame. I mean, if you go all the way to the heat death of the universe, I don't think anybody thinks that that's not a pretty likely source of doom. So the only question is, what's the time frame? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, even before that, the sun will go nova. I mean, not even, we don't have the whole universe have to die. The sun will go nova at some point, and then I think humanity on Earth, so humanity as we know it,
right, as we know,
is doomed. But that's 1 billion years, and that's just too abstract and far out. So
and also within a couple 100 million years, we're gonna have like a major asteroid impact.
Yeah, but let's why I tell people, let's talk about 1,000 years. It's just it's just human history by now is overall the human story is about 3 million years. 1,000 years is a non-trivial amount of time, but not a ridiculously long amount of time. And I think it's a good goal for humanity to figure out, are we going to be here in 1,000 years?
Personally, I think the most interesting time frame to look at this point really is just 10 or 20 years, if not less. I don't even think we need to focus on what's happening after 20 years because I think so much stuff is happening so fast, especially with AI. So I'll just ask you really quick to get a baseline. What's your PDoom, let's say by 2050? So a little bit more than 20 years. What do you think is the chance that the vast majority of humanity, if not literally everyone, is just permanently going to die, no descendants, we're never going to conquer the galaxy? It's kind of like a sad end to the species. What's your PDoom in that sense?
So I'm actually giving a talk on Thursday, and I have the same time frame, which is again about 2050. What will happen by 2050? So I don't think we'll be extinct by 2050. However, it doesn't mean that things are going to be good. So in the sense of this thing, kind of people taking the scenario, AI is super intelligent, and he says, well, these are pesky humans, they're just pollution on Earth, I can make more, I can make more paper clips without all these humans around, and so let's get rid of the humans. To me, that's not a very likely scenario. But my point is that, look where we are today, okay? So I would say, first of all, the world is not in very good shape, and this country is not in very good shape. There is a lot of reason to believe that we'll see a wave of automation of low-skill, white-collar jobs. Low-skill, white-collar job. Why white-collar and not blue-collar? Blue-collar already have been hit with decline of manufacturing because everybody thinks manufacturing went away. But what happened because manufacturing went up the food chain. Look for higher added value manufacturing. We don't make sneakers in this country, okay? But we make jet engines, we make cars. These are capital intensive, and it makes sense to automate them. So there was a huge wave of automation that affected our manufacturing industry. And many, many millions of jobs manufacturing have been lost. Now, next wave of automation will be, in my opinion, low-skill, white-collar jobs.
That makes sense. So we're going to talk about, unemployment doom, but I would like to get a headline number for you, right? So let's say by 2050, probability that the human race not only will have a hard time finding jobs for some people, but will not even have descendants. Like we'll basically all be killed by 2050. So I think you mentioned the probability is pretty low, but can you give me a rough number?
Nah, to me, it's not a likely. I mean, the scenario that is to me is realistic. It is more going to be social changes going to affect us. The reason that I said we're not doomed, but we are screwed, because I see social changes that makes me very nervous. One is we know that when people lose their jobs, they lose a lot. People lose their sense of value. I mean, the whole bunch of things that people lose when they don't have jobs. Okay. And I said, if you want to understand today, politics of today is the politics of blue collar or working class resentment in the United States. Now, what happened when this will happen to white collar people? How to say, even if you just look politically, kind of what happened over the last 50 years here, think about it. The Democrats used to be the party of the working class people. And somehow they've gradually became the party of educated professionals. And the Republican Party, that was the party of business, now become the party of the oligarchs and the working class people. Very strange. So the point is that social changes and socioeconomic changes bring about very profound political changes as well. So right now we are a polarized country, lots of resentment, and I don't see this is getting any better. That's what worries me.
Very interesting point about white-collar workers following in the footsteps of the blue-collar workers and getting worried about their career path. I think I agree about this kind of AI unemployment wave. And I don't even think we're looking at a fraction of the population, right? I would write it all the way to just everybody, right? I mean, like I consider myself not only a white-collar worker, but also like a technical worker, right? So I have this high opinion of my own skills, but I'm already watching myself being made redundant by some of these latest AI software tools. So would you argue that the unemployment wave goes all the way to every job, basically?
So, in some sense, I would say you can ask, and this is a kind of a criticism of myself and my own field, is we're pursuing the dream of artificial intelligence. And why? And you can go back all the way to Turing, who wrote this famous paper in 1950 on the possibility of machine intelligence. And he argued that, yes, machine can become intelligent. He said, okay, let's do it. And why are we doing this?
Right.
Why do we want to have artificial intelligence? So if you look, the idea of artificial intelligence come up, the first person to have really discussed it was Leibniz in the 17th century. But he talked about, really, if you look what he talked about intelligence augmentation. For example, I'm wearing now glasses, you're wearing glasses. This is a technology that augments us. It does not replace us, okay? Even Steve Jobs, when he talked about computers, the personal computer, he said it's going to be like a bicycle for the mind. We will be able to think faster. But we've been focusing on machines that replace us. And we should ask, wait a minute, why are we doing it? So why are we developing technology? The reason we develop technology is because we're lazy. We don't like to work hard. But also thinking hard is hard. Thinking is hard. But what happens if we just don't have to think anymore? So I wrote some years ago, about a decade ago, I wrote, suppose we succeed in automating everything. Suppose we build machines, they can do whatever humans being can do. What's the purpose of humanity? And some people say, oh, we will just all become artists and write poetry. Wait a minute. Some machines can write better poetry than I can. Maybe I don't know about you, but definitely better than poetry than me. Then I'm not very good at writing poetry. Okay, and we have I can generate art. Again, people debate if is it really art, how creative is it? But the idea that all these people will know jobs, what they will do is they will just write poems and produce art. I tend to him to be just incredibly naive. In fact, we have data. We talked about the declining in employment ratio. So people have said, okay, what do people have? They don't have jobs. What do they do? And the answer is women that don't work actually work, just not for pay, but usually take care of someone, either someone young or someone old. But men that don't work, especially prime age men that don't work, very often what they do is they play video games. So that to me is a pretty bleak future for humanity, is playing video games. because the machine will play video games better than us also. So it's not clear what is our great purpose in life is to play video games.
I agree. It's weird that even the non-doom scenario is hard to specify. This is a recent book by Nick Bostrom where he was basically saying, okay, yeah, imagine we can do anything, right? The AIs can do everything for us. So how do we even build our heaven? Because everything is too easy. So you accidentally make everything easy and now it's like too easy. So I agree. You could argue that's a good problem to have, but I do think that it's somewhat of a problem. But I just, for the sake of completeness here, I would love to get a ballpark range here on this thing you think is unlikely, right? This thing of everybody getting truly doomed, like permanently extincted by 2050, right? Can I get a number for that?
I think I wouldn't put the number, but to me, it's very, very unlikely scenario.
Like less than 1%?
Less than 1%.
Okay,
Again,
well,
these are all, these are numbers that we get just out of thin air, so to speak. But it's assumed. So I have to say, humanity, there is a standard phrase now. I'm worried not about artificial intelligence. I'm worried about natural stupidity. So we have not proved to be very, very wise as a species, but we have to be incredibly idiots to let technology run amok to the point that it will just decide, let's do away with the pesky human. So that to me is, I can say it cannot happen, but not very likely. I think it's very, very, or let's put it this way, very unlikely. On the other hand, the scenario where we are screwed, to me, is very, very likely scenario. And what worries me about AI is exactly that we don't like to make an effort, we don't like to think hard. And so people now talk about cognitive de-skilling. Okay? So, for example, I do not use AI to do writing, because when I write, I think. And when I write like a one page op-ed, I usually have a general idea what I want to say, but I just start writing, and my thoughts clarified themselves to me. I discover what I'm thinking as I'm writing. And to me, if I start using Gen AI for writing, then I stop thinking, and I'm not going to do that. So I'm part of the resistance. Remember, the field talk about the resistance. I'm part of the resistance. Okay.
Or yeah, so you think a lot about resisting that outcome, right? Resisting humans becoming, soft, kind of like the movie WALL-E, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that was the movie was about. But the point is that it's not clear to me. I'm worried. Especially, I'm worried about young people who have not yet learned to think hard, and they may never learn to think hard because there's always a crutch to use. And the newest kid on the block, so to speak, is having human relationships. Human relationships are hard. Paul Sartre, the French philosopher Paul Sartre, was a bit of a misanthrope, and he said, hell is other people. He did not like people in general. What we learned from COVID is also the heaven is other people. The social isolation is very harsh. But having a relationship is hard. It's hard to get along with your fellow human beings. Now suddenly you can have a virtual friend, and everything is easy. There are no fights. You promised me you're going to do it, but you haven't done it yet. Everything is easy. But if everything is easy, it's not a real relationship. It's just what I call ersatz relationship.
Yeah, Nick Bostrom uses the analogy of the exoskeleton, where we have all these problems in our life, and normally we wish the problems would go away. But if all the problems go away, it's like the exoskeleton of our life goes away, and then we just turn into mush. Like we don't even know where to begin with our day. I think there's a lot of truth to that. I feel like the optimal heaven, like there's a reason you want to be in the resistance, because the ultimate world we want to create probably is still a world where we have interesting challenges to ourselves.
So, you look at your life and you ask someone, okay, what are you proud of? And it's usually the hard things that you're proud of. It's not the easy thing that you're proud of, okay? You're proud of, this was hard, but I did it, and I did, maybe not perfect, but I did okay. And that's what you're proud of, okay? Is where you did something hard. Nobody said, oh, it was trivial and I did it, I'm very proud of it. we are proud of overcoming difficulties and challenges. So what happened to life if there are no challenges? I think life without challenges is meaningless. And it's a paradox. We don't like these challenges when they happen. When things are hard, we don't like it when it's hard. But that's what part of the condition of being human, overcoming challenges.
So the difference between me and you is we both agree that there's challenges to this supposedly good scenario where AI makes life too easy. We both agree there's an interesting struggle to build a society that still has enough structure in the form of challenges and problems. I agree that's a very rich area. I'm glad some people are focusing on it. I think the only difference is that you have this definition that you sometimes call doom or being screwed, which is like the AIs are going to kill us with kindness. And I still think the AIs are more likely to kill us by melting our cells.
So actually, recently, I think there is the social psychologist Jonathan Haidt from NYU, and he's been the kind of the prophet of doom from social media. He's been arguing the social media is very harmful for young people, and he wrote an article recently where, in fact, somebody asked, I think ChatGPT, what would you do to destroy humanity? How would you destroy humanity? And I think the answer was, well, I'll do it in a way that they will not even know that it's happening to them. It was really much, I'll kill them with kindness. Why is ChatGPT such a sycophant? It's not kindness. Kindness is a human emotion. It's been built like that. It could be built differently, okay? The companies that built it can make an argumentative one, and maybe there will be an industry to have an argumentative girlfriend or boyfriend instead of being a sycophant virtual friends. Right now, they're not very realistic. It's a very non-human friend, and you're not dealing with the human challenges of relationships. I think if life is too easy, it's meaningless. In fact, people seek challenges. People says, I want to climb the Kilimanjaro. They know it's going to be hard. They don't want a robot to carry them up the Kilimanjaro. It's kind of meaningless, right? They want to say, I was able to climb the Kilimanjaro. Okay? So we seek challenges. Having challenges just in the right amount that sometimes we fail. It's good to have some failures in life. Who are successful in everything, then success doesn't mean much. Everybody has some failures in life. And we learn from success and from failures. That's kind of the richness of the human story.
Right. Okay. Well, everything you said now makes a lot of sense. But, the audience of this show, it's called Doom Debates. They like a little debate action, right? So they like to find the part where you and I disagree. So let's get back to the less than 1% P of extinction by 2050, because we're both smart people here, right? That's what our parents say. And I have a 50% P doom by 2050, and you have less than 1%. So this is...
But not zero.
Yeah, not zero. So not only...
I'll tell you my scenario.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll tell you my scenario. My scenario is not that AI, AI will decide, let's get rid of the pesky humans, okay? But think, what was the movie? What was it? I think it was War Games. And if I remember very vaguely, it's a movie from a long time ago. It described, they decided that asking people to push on the button is, who knows, will the people push the button? If you have to push the nuclear button, will they do it, okay? And in fact, you needed two people to do it, and one who is hesitant, so decided they need to automate it. And then the AI is some very early version of AI decided to launch a nuclear war. Okay, and so some people are now talking about like a Hindenburg moment with AI. There was a period where we have this gas-lifted airships, and there was what's called the Hindenburg moment, where catastrophic accident happened. That kind of the thing that keeps me on my toes now, as we are becoming more and more relying on AI in different applications. People talk about vibe coding. What happened when we build software? AI built software for nuclear reactors, for controlling nuclear reactor, and there is a catastrophe because of the software was not reliable. So as we are becoming more and more reliable on the technology, I think there will be a moment of catastrophe. The question is, what's the scale of the catastrophe?
Yeah,
Is it planetary scale?
problem.
Is it just there is a difference between one plane crashing, or suddenly imagine that it is such a error of such magnitude that suddenly all the planes in the United States in the air are all suddenly crashing at the same time because of some AI malfunction.
Yeah, I feel good about never having all the planes in the U.S. accidentally crash. I feel like that's the kind of scenario that engineering, especially of the caliber of airplane flight, I feel like we're not going to screw up in that particular way. And even if we did, it would still have survivors, right? And I'm concerned about a different doom scenario. So I think at this point, I want you to take a ride on what I call the doom train, which is
Okay.
I'll run arguments by you of why I'm convinced that we're doomed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Let's
And-
get on the doom train.
Yeah, we're going to get on the doom train. And if you're like me, you just ride all the way to the end. You don't get off on any of the stops.
So
But
let me suggest, you may want to write, you can probably use AI to write a nice poem. One-way ticket to the doom.
exactly.
You know the song One-Way Ticket to the Blues? We can compose something that will be one-way ticket to the doom. Actually write a song and create a singing. One-way ticket to the doom.
One-way ticket, one-way ticket, one-way ticket to the doom.
All right, great. So the doom train. So the stops on the doom train represent arguments people make why they're optimistic, and they get off on various stops. And there's so many stops. There's so many arguments why people say they're not doomed. I've managed to hold on and never get off the train. So I'm all the way at the end at Doomtown just thinking that we're doomed. And my background for this show, it represents the doom train right here. You can see the train is going over here to Doomtown where the fire is. All right, so one of the first stops on the doom train is the idea that AI is about to get more powerful than humanity. You seem to think that's the case when it comes to being able to do all the jobs. Do you accept the premise in general that everything a human brain can do, it seems like an AI will be able to do soon?
Soon, I don't know. So I'm a materialist, and to me, the brain is a machine. It's an amazing machine, crafted by evolution, but it's a physical machine nevertheless. So it's hard for me to accept the argument that the brain is more powerful than any machine we can build. I don't understand it. To me, we've been able to build machines that are stronger than us, faster than us. I don't see any argument. In this sense, if you go back to Turing in 1950, I don't see any argument why a machine cannot be intelligent, even more intelligent than us, which we accept. We know that there are some people are more intelligent, okay? So if we are going to build the intelligent machine, why are we going to build it with IQ 100? Why can't we build it with IQ 200, 300? Who knows?
And there's sites that aggregate predictions of when this moment will happen, if ever. And there's a pretty big consensus, as far as I can tell, which happens to also coincide with my own best guess, that sometime around 2030 is when this moment will happen of AI just surpassing the human brain in every economically relevant way. Does that sound like a reasonable estimate to you?
No, 2030 is very close. And so there are various arguments. One is because right now, essentially, the industry is kind of on one track of LLMs and just scale it up, scaling. LLM, but scaling. But there are people who argue that this, for example, Jan LeCun says, these are all language models. We need world models. Judea Perel says that a huge part of intelligence is understanding causality, because we kind of understanding how the world behaves. We understand that, how one thing causes another thing. That's a big part of how we understand the world. And he said, we have not been able to make such progress in causality. So even on the scaling, people debate between, there's one country saying scaling is all you need. And then people say, no, scaling is already started to slow down. We are not getting there. 2030 is very, very soon in some sense. So I am very skeptical about the 2030. But before that, you gave me another date in terms of the employment and 2050. And that's about 15 years from today. That feels a bit more, more likely. But again, the answer is that These are all very speculative because we don't really know what is it we need to get to human level intelligence and what would it take to get beyond that. But let's say so 2030 seems to me very soon. I'm willing to bet money that we won't get there at 2030. But I will not bet against 2050.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's already pretty bold, and that's, load bearing. We could even extend out. Okay, we'll be doomed by 2070, right? Give me a time extension here. I'll just argue that we're doomed by 2070 because we both agree that there's a pretty strong chance that by 2050 you'll just have AI being able to outclass the human brain at everything. Correct?
Okay, it's not a crazy 2050 or definitely 2070. It's not a crazy assumption. 2030 seems to be very aggressive. 2050, medium. 2070, conservative.
You think a lot about the unemployment consequences of AI, as we've already discussed. So I did want to pause on this part of the doom train and just ask you, because I'm curious, do you think that any particular job is likely to be robust like 10 years from now? If somebody's in a certain career track, do you think they'll have an advantage over other people? Because I personally am having a hard time knowing any career track that's not doomed.
So I'll tell you about an interesting kind of virtual debate that happened about a decade ago. It was not an actual debate, but it was my argument. And Joseph Aoun was then the president of Northwestern, wrote a book around, I think, 2018 or 17 or 18 called Robot Proof. How should we change the education to prepare people for the robot-ruled world? And part of the thing he says is one thing unique to human being is empathy. This is, there are a lot, many jobs require empathy. This is unique human talent. This is robot proof. On the other hand, in 2016, I was in a big meeting, and we talked about the future of work. And a reporter from The Guardian asked the following question. People said that if technology, if AI and robotics will able to automate all jobs, the jobs will remain uniquely human, will be one that require emotional work. And I looked at him and I said, would you bet against sex robots? And it was a soundbite, and The Guardian ran with it. They had a title, Would You Bet Against Sex Robots? And now, about a decade later, who was right? Joseph Aoun, who said that empathy is uniquely human, or me? I was right. Now we say we have all these virtual companions. Turn out they can at least fake empathy. I don't think it's not real empathy in some sense. When I feel empathetic, it's a feeling inside me, not just a behavior, it's a feeling. But they can fake empathy as well as anyone else, okay? And in fact, I think OpenAI announced that they're going to allow to have what they call adult content. So I think sex robots, by 2050, will have sex robots, I'm convinced, okay? Because human beings are desperate for certain things, companionship, sex, so somebody will take advantage of that. That's going to happen. It is hard to think of anything that in the long term, if you go back into Turing's argument, it's hard to find anything humans can do that ultimately a machine cannot do. So yes, we have a machine that nature has worked for hundreds of millions of years to perfect it. But we've been doing pretty well in learning from nature. And I mean, you look, AI today is partly, people forget where it started. The first paper that wrote about neural nets, it was understanding how the brain works.
Yeah, I often use the analogy also of like birds. Yeah, a bird's wing is this perfect creation. It's so light and it's so nimble. But at the end of the day, we figured out the basic principles of flight, and a jet engine can do things that birds couldn't dream of.
Yep. So I cannot think of anything the humans can do that in principle machine would not be able to do.
Okay, well, I'm with you there. So the basic sketch of why I think we're doomed is I think we're going to at least have what Dario Amodei from Anthropic is going around saying, a country of geniuses in a data center. I think that's probably going to be a good description of what we have very, very soon. I can tell you personally, I've been using Claude Code pretty frequently at my day job as of the last couple of weeks, and it's really better than a human software engineer. I mean, there's little corners where it's not yet, but like the bulk of what it's doing, it's clearly like, wow, I'm basically now out of a career, or I will be in a couple months. Like, and I've been a software engineer for a couple decades now. And I think I'm done as a software engineer. I might be a product manager. I might be managing an AI software engineer, but my ability to engineer software is pretty much moot at this point. So this idea that there's going to be software engineering geniuses, writer geniuses, designer geniuses, movie maker geniuses, all living in a data center, and there's like millions of them, right, in many data centers, country of geniuses in a data center, to use Dario's language. To me, that seems extremely likely in, let's say less than a decade, right, if not sooner. And that's kind of the beginning. Like, I see the intelligence actually growing from there. I think what we're going to have is going to be so intelligent that even a human genius doesn't really begin to describe it. But just to finish my argument, right, you have the country of geniuses in the data center. If they get it in their heads, if somebody issues a command to the data center, if they have root level privileges to tell all of those geniuses what to do, how does the entire coalition of humans compete with millions of geniuses in a data center? How, who wins that fight?
Well, first of all, history has shown us that societies that gets too much inequality, at least in the modern period, too much inequality, it's destructive at the end. We have, I hear arguments now, the Industrial Revolution happened and look, we are fine. People forget the Industrial Revolution nearly took two communist revolutions, the Soviet and Chinese Revolution. They stole for about 100 million people. So anybody is blasé about the havoc that industrial revolutions can yield is ignoring history. So, and also even now we are in some sense in a period of, if you're looking at what's happening now, it is some kind of a revolution. It's not exactly so far a violent revolution. We don't have the guillotines yet, but we are living. The big question will be, are we going to go back to some kind of semi-normal in 2028 or not? I'm not convinced that this, this is just an aberration. This might be expression of, we built very unequal society, lots of people with a lot of resentment. I don't know who is going to be in control. People who decides to burn the data centers, okay? A lot of resentment right now. There was an article in New York Times just on Sunday, but the growing resentment against AI, and the tech companies are worried about it. So there is a more and more now. I think Time magazine had a cover, the people versus AI, VAI. So we are heading into, unlike some, when the internet happened, I don't remember any people say, oh, internet, it will be great. I don't remember any kind of resentment. The tech clash was around something that started kind of resentment against tech company, started to go serious arena around maybe 2018. And then it kind of subsided because we were too busy with COVID. Who knows what's going to happen?
Okay, so the whole doom train, it's a long track. I've identified like 80 stops. I'm sure I could think of 80 more. People are very creative. They take many positions. But you can factor the entire doom train track into half of it is the question of, can AIs disempower humanity? Can the AIs take over? And the second half of the track is, okay, let's assume that they can, but then will they choose to do it, right? Or will they be motivated in any way to do it? So there's can they, and there's will they. And the sense I'm getting from you so far is you seem very open-minded that they can, right? Because I definitely think they can. Do you think they can?
So, again, people, I remember when Nick Bostrom, about the paperclip experiment.
Yeah.
I was thinking to myself, but I can tell you, Nick, open your eyes. It's already happening. One, we already have super intelligent beings. What are these super intelligent beings? They are large corporations. Large corporations are super intelligent. They can marshal together. They have enormous resources. They bring into the intelligence of many, many people to do amazing things that no individual person can do. So these tech corporations are more intelligent than human beings. Now, what are they trying to do? They're trying to not maximize paper deep production. They're trying to maximize profit production. So the scenario I think Bostrom described, how we have super intelligent AI and will maximize paperclip production, is already happening. We have corporations that are super intelligent. We have not found a way to regulate them and restrain them. And they're sitting very close to power. People talk about the oligarchy. And they have enormous power. That's what worries me, not AI. I'm worried about the power of a small number of people with enormous amount of wealth and desire us to expand that wealth using technology that might be risky. And, look at all this, for example, using all this energy now, to what end? And the answer at the end of the day is for profits. That's what worries me. Not that I will doom us. I'm worried about the tech corporations dooming us.
That's fine to be worried about that, right? But I'm asking a very specific question about something else. So I was hoping to just focus on that.
So the question is, so far, here is the thing that so far has not happened. So far, we do not seem to have AI with agency. Okay? So if you look at human beings have, in fact, in AI, it was called BDI, belief, desires, and intentions. Okay? We are acting as agents. We have some beliefs, we have some desires, and we have some intentions, and then we act upon them. Now, so far we have not tried to do it, and I'm hoping that even if you look at the top of AI agents, they don't have agency in the sense that we have agency, okay? They have agency in the sense that I'm telling them, okay, you are an agent for booking flights, so go ahead and book the best flights possible. They are not, I don't see AI says, I want to get rich, and I'm willing to do you money in order to get rich. I see people are willing to do you money in order to get rich. I don't see AI so far, they have these desires. Remember, Buddhism tells us the source of human suffering is that we have wants and desires. That's it.
So on this question of, can a sufficiently large data center of geniuses, can it take over and go head to head versus all the militaries, all the human militaries of the world? It's the can question. And in response to the can question, you're pointing out, well, maybe the answer to can they is no, because maybe agency is the bottleneck, right? That's what you're saying?
It's somebody, there has to be, if you look at human history, and you look at, sometimes we have two types of miseries. We have sometimes nature causes miseries for us, but most of the time miseries are caused by other human beings that have desires and intentions. That's what they do, and they act on it. They have desires and intentions, and they act on them. Okay. So far, we have not seen AI technology that out of this come, even with autonomy, but not just autonomy, but with this uniquely human thing of wants and desires.
Is there a particular test, an objective test of achieve this particular task or score on something where we can test them and be like, aha, you're always getting a low score on this benchmark because of this Achilles heel that you don't have agency?
So this partly have to do with you can find on YouTube, I gave a talk recently about our AI mind, genuine minds, okay? And it's actually very hard to find genuine minds. So take even something very simple, which is consciousness. So, there was some debate. Remember, there was an engineer in Google that claimed that the AI model that they had at the time was sentient. Okay?
Yeah, I remember Blake Lemoine, I think.
Yes, Blake Lemoine. But philosophers have been asking now for quite some time, is there a test for consciousness? So, if for example, I think you're conscious. Why do you think you're conscious? Well, mostly because I think you're human. And so you're almost likely like me. We may have different opinions, we have different tastes, different desires, but we are more alike than not alike. And if I'm conscious, then you're conscious. Okay, that's why I think that you're conscious. But there was, in fact, the argument, is there a behavioral test for consciousness? Philosophers have written, there was a philosophy paper from some years back called Conversation with a Zombie. So supposedly the zombies are not conscious. But if you meet a zombie who doesn't have dangling fingers but looks like human. How would you decide with someone and decide that they are conscious?
Maybe there is no causal test, but you're bringing it up in the context of answering why you think maybe AIs can't kill everybody, right? So it's got to be some kind of limitation to their performance somehow if they don't have agency.
So Nick Bostrom, if you look at his scenario, was why he does talk in a scenario why superintelligent AI will destroy humanity, and the purpose will be making paper clips. But why does the superintelligent creature in Nick Bostrom experiment wants to make paperclip? It was built for that end. So now we have to think. Imagine that someone is going to build AI, saying someone is going to build the technology. Imagine there is this crazy inventor now. Maybe this is a more possible scenario. Not that the AI will just wake up one morning and say humanity is just a plague on Earth. Let's go destroy them. But what happens if there is a crazy scientist? This is called the crazy scientist scenario, which we worry. What happens if the crazy scientist that will decide one day to build an atom, to start a nuclear war, push the button? And actually, in that context, people have worried about it. And what they have done is built some systems to ensure that a single person does not have that power. For example, to launch nuclear ICBMs, two people have to push the button, making less likely that one. Now, what happens if two people get crazy at the same time, or a group of people get crazy? I mean, we have this worry about, we have the capacity today to destroy humanity. It's very clear that if suddenly there's a massive nuclear war, if there's a massive nuclear attack of the United States and Russia, massive nuclear attack on each other, that might be the end of humanity. Okay?
I think there'll probably be some survivors.
Maybe some survivors, okay?
And I agree it's very bad, and I think it's underrated.
But remember, what was it? Who did it? There was the group called themselves the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists.
It's funny you're bringing that up because my guest last week was actually Professor Daniel Holtz, who's the chairman of that group, and we talked all about the doomsday clock.
The doomsday clock. These are the guys. They thought that to them, in fact, they said the most realistic scenario for doomsday would be a nuclear holocaust.
Totally, yeah. And I agree that was the most likely scenario up until
the most likely.
Powered in AI.
So has he changed it? Has he moved it from nuclear holocaust to AI holocaust?
He's a little bit vague about which one is bigger, but he agreed with me that both the nuclear extinction risk and the AI extinction risk are both really strong, and that's one of the reasons why the clock is now closer to midnight than ever.
So the thing that I'm actually kind of revising my beliefs as we speak from this conversation, because I kept always when I thought about P of Doom was AI decides to destroy humanity.
Right.
But if we learn from what will happen from the Bulletin of Nuclear Scientists, their worry was just things get out of control. What was their worry? In fact, we know that there have been scenarios we are very, very close to nuclear war. So now let's change the doom scenario for AI. It's not caused by AI. AI just means. But imagine, let's imagine the following, okay? The growing tension between China and the United States. And then the nuclear forces now are controlled by AI. Go back to the kind of the war game scenarios. And then, humans can do something to trigger AI. So I'm not so worried about AI deciding to get rid of humans. I'm worried about humans. To me, anything on the planet is proving to be very unpredictable factor. It's been humans.
So you're more worried about humans than AIs, but you've also accepted the premise that
AI is means. No, AI is means. AI is means. Okay, look, a crazy person with an axe can be an axe murderer, okay? We see even with had mass shooters, okay? We've had people going, what was the guy at Las Vegas some years ago, okay? Start shooting from a tower and killing many dozens of people.
Okay, so just, we're heading toward the wrap-up soon. So I was asking the half of the doom train that's can the AIs kill everybody? And you seem to think that, well, they can if used as a tool. So I'm willing to entertain that scenario. Okay, they're being used as a tool. So how about the scenario where one bad guy who happens to be a good hacker, hacks into this huge data center of geniuses, right? A network of data centers equivalent to 100 million geniuses. But it turns out that this person is a good enough hacker that he's able to run a command on this supercluster. And the command just says, kill all humans. Okay, so I'm willing to say, let's make the scenario that. So let's mix in the human agency, right? There's a spark of human agency to type those letters, kill all humans, and now the ball is in the AI's court. In that situation, can the AI kill all humans?
So I'm still not a doomer even for that scenarios, because again, I look at what happened with nuclear weapons, which was a technology people thought could end humanity. And we have found ways to deal with it so far, okay? We're always a few minutes to midnight, but we're still there. We're still here to discuss it. And what have we found? We negotiated treaties, okay? We designed human systems. We did a whole bunch of things to reduce the risk. We did not eliminate the risk. We're always a few minutes to midnight, but we have found ways to control the risk, and so far we have not made this extra step. Now we're talking about the risk of kind of human-mediated AI disaster, and which at some point we're not there yet, but we might get to the point that this will become possible. We will need to kind of to know more about what we know about humans, how to control humans. That's what we need to worry. I'm worried about humans. Right now, that's my big worry is why am I worried about the tech corporations rather than the technology? Because the tech corporations are run by people. Okay? I'm more nervous, I'm more worried about, again, the issue with nuclear weapons was not the weapon per se, was how humans will use them.
I'm just trying to clarify, are you then saying that if the data center full of genius AIs had the command, root level command to kill all humans, you think their chance of success is very low?
No, I think that we will learn, we will not necessarily build such a data center. We will start to use, why build such a data center? We will not build it. We will build a protection. For example, where it is right now, why no hacker has been able, there's some crazy hackers. How come no hacker has been able to hack into the system that launch ICBMs and launch a missile? Has not happened yet, okay?
We don't know that it hasn't, but this is, to give you my 2 cents on this subject, very simple. Hacking is pretty hard. The amount of humans who could actually pull off hacks that are pretty hard on high stakes targets is a very small fraction of the human population. And those humans are like, what do I want? Make money, not go to jail, not get killed. So their incentive structure tends to be not to be hacking ICBMs, but rather to just go make millions of dollars.
So why would someone try to hack into the center and launch a command to destroy humanity? It's kind of a bit the same thing. There is easy ways to make money and get laid.
I agree that the percentage of humans who are going to hack in the data center and type kill everybody is pretty low. I was factoring the argument. The reason I asked you that hypothetical is just to focus on the question of can the data center of geniuses kill humanity if it wanted to?
Again, you're asking, if we're talking about we can do scenarios, but we could all be, by next year, we could all be dead because a large meteor or a comet is going to hit us,
right. Yeah, but the scenario is just come in and gets into the shell, right? I mean, what if somebody accidentally types the command in the shell at one point?
Then we'll be stupid to have a keyboard which you can easily type such command that this can be done. Again, we have been pretty good.
You're like 140 characters away from accidentally kicking off Doom is my issue.
I don't think so. I don't think it's going to be. We are not going to design system. We'll be stupid. Again, I'm worried about human stupidity. We are not going to design system where a random a janitor that sits by a keyboard will type a command and launch a command to destroy humanity. That's what we have, again, with very risky technology, we have been able to still build a system that so far have protected us.
Let me just factor your claim, though, because you're saying, hey, it's not going to exist. The data center of geniuses that accepts arbitrary commands is not going to exist. But we're going to be smarter about filtering what commands it'll accept. It'll judge the commands. You can claim that, but I just wanted to factor the Doom train into the first stop, which is, hey, if the data center of geniuses existed, and if it was configured to just not judge people's commands, to just be like a genie, like your wish is my command, then do you think its probability of wiping out humanity would be high?
But it's not a very conditional probability. You have to say if there is a whole chain of events, I think we will. Yeah.
a couple of conditions because I want to, because you can imagine, you could give me an answer like, then I think the answer is yes, but all of my non-doom argument rests on the next step of we won't build it, right? So I want to see where I'm factoring your worldview here.
No. So the question is, are we, we talked about like, will humanity still be here in 2050? But let's put it this way. I think there are bigger risks between us and between here and 2050. I'm worried about runaway climate change, for example, where we seem to be doing nothing. Imagine we have right now more and more hurricanes per year. What happens if, we have some mega hurricanes, bigger things, The people talking about the possibility of a tipping point in the climate, things like that. So there are lots of risks that can happen. I lose sleep over being screwed by AI. That really makes me lose sleep. What will happen is mass unemployment.
Yeah, kill with kindness scenario.
Yeah, but mass unemployment is not even, kindness, kind of. We'll do everything for you, but our socioeconomic system require people, people talk about what they call this going to be kind of a utopia, but so far if you see over the past 50 years, we have economic growth, but it's not a utopia here, okay? So I'm worried about our wisdom in navigating these challenges. I'm very worried. But the AI running over mad scientists, there are such scenarios. I cannot say probability is zero. But here's the thing about small risks. Let's suppose that you ask me, can you come tomorrow? Would you live in Houston? We would like you to come and give a talk tomorrow at Austin. Okay? And Austin is about something like 200 miles from here. Okay? So about 3 hours drive. I don't like long drives, but let's suppose you offer me a $10,000 honorarium. I'll probably take it. I can take Uber to Austin, but it doesn't matter from their point of view. What is the probability that if I drive from here to Austin, I will die?
Yeah, I mean, we can estimate that. It's not that hard.
I think it's something like 1 in a million.
Maybe a little bit higher than that, but yeah, roughly.
Okay, but even just let's say 1 in a million.
Uh-huh.
It's not going to cause me to not go to Austin. I said, what, I'm going to stop on the way and have coffee on the way in the center. So I will not drive 3 hours, I'll stop on the way. But I will drive there. People do it all the time. Okay?
Sure.
So if the risk of something happening is 1 in a million, we just ignore it. That's the reality. I don't think the risk of extinction is in the 1%. 1% is significant risk. If you told me the risk of me dying going to Austin is 1%, that's a high risk. I will not drive to Austin if it's 1%.
Okay. So yeah, I'm starting to get the lay of the land of your views. Your conclusion is that P of doom is very, very low. I don't know if you've sat down and factored which parts you're optimistic about. It sounds like you have kind of a general sense of optimism that something along the way is going to work out.
I'm a pessimist. I think the probability of being screwed is much higher. It's
Yeah. Right.
My worry is the probability. If you ask me about the probability of being screwed, I would say 50%, very high.
Right. Yeah, okay. I mean, this is like, have you ever seen that meme from the Star Wars with the 4 panels where Anakin is saying, AI is going to kill us in this version of the meme, and then Padme is saying, with kindness, right? Kill us with kindness, right?
No, I've not seen it. I have to look up for it. I'll have to look up for it.
Like a meme template, yeah. That's basically what our conversation is, where, I mean, I agree that if we survive my biggest concern, which is the AI doesn't kill us, then we have the doom from Nick Bostrom's book that I think you're also mindful of, which is this idea of, okay, we can have everything we want, but then we all just become the lazy people from WALL-E. And I agree, we should try to avoid that. There's interesting challenges there. There's this whole concept of fun theory, which is like, okay, you can do anything you want. How do you make it fun? Right? How do you optimize the fun of it?
Yeah.
One more quick question I want to ask you, and I know we're coming up on time. You did sign the famous 2023 statement from the Center for AI Safety, the statement that says, mitigating the risk of extinction from AI should be a global priority alongside other societal scale risks, such as pandemics and nuclear war. So, do you still see AI as a prominent existential risk?
So, many people, because I signed that statement, many people ask me about it. And I said, when I said such a statement, it doesn't necessarily mean that I agree with everything it says. The reason that I signed it, because I do believe that the system we have right now in which just the drive for profit is driving this development with no, and especially United States in particular, no regulation, no liability. I mean, one of the issues about this technology is they have no liability because we have all signed click-through contracts that waive liability. Okay, this situation where society does not really control what's happening with technology. What is the direction? How do we ensure that it contributes to human welfare? I very much object to this. Let's the tech company decide what to do, and that's it. And in fact, we will support it and subsidize them, whatever. I object to that, and therefore I'm willing to sign statements, even if I don't necessarily agree with every line in the statement. But I did there. The main issue to me was not necessarily the extinction, but the thrust that we need to exercise some societal control over this technology. And to that end, I signed the statement.
Nice. Yeah, maybe we can think of it in your case as like mitigating the risk of getting screwed should be a high priority.
For example. Yes. Okay. I'm worried about this technology, and I think as a society we should have a say in where it is going, and we're not right now. We don't have a say where it is going.
Okay, we can wrap on that. Professor Moshe Vardi, thanks for coming on and being a good sport and debating me here in the arena.
That was fun.
Nice.
We should do it again. Let's do it again in 2050. Let's do it again in 2050.
Okay, I'll see you then. Mark my calendar.
We can compose something that will be one-way ticket to the doom. You can play it at the end of the episode. One-day ticket to the doom.